Some men don't die from bullets, they die from silence, from holding in things they should have shouted, from walking past what they should have faced. You ever sit alone at night wondering if you missed your one chance to make something right? Will Morgan did. He hadn't heard his name spoken like it mattered in years. The world didn't check if he was still breathing. It just kept going. One day he had a wife, the next just a patch of dirt behind the barn. That morning Will wasn't looking for anything, just another broken fence until he saw the sack. It was hanging crooked under a low cottonwood, swinging lazy in the breeze, the kind of thing a man ignores if he's smart. Trouble doesn't always bark before it bites, but something about it felt wrong, too still, too quiet. He rode closer, eyes squinting under the brim of his hat. The sack wasn't tied tight, more like thrown and caught halfway. Torn burlap, sun-stained, there were dark smudges near the bottom. Then he heard it. A sound you don't forget once you've heard it once. Not a scream, not even a cry, just breathe. Weak, human. He dismounted slow. Careful, the sack shifted. Inside was a woman, maybe 25. Her dress was torn, skin dry and blistered, lips cracked and bloody. One wrist was still bound with rusted wire. She didn't beg, didn't scream. She just said it like she was already gone. Just kill me fast. Will froze. Then he knelt, pulled back the thin blanket covering her, and what he saw made his stomach twist. Not because it was fresh, but because whoever did it wanted it to be permanent. They hadn't left her to die. They left her to disappear. The ranch wasn't much to look at. Dusty porch, 2 creaky chairs, no one ever sat in. A roof that moaned louder than a man with a hangover every time the wind blew. But for her, it was the closest thing to safety she'd felt in years. Will didn't ask her name, didn't ask what happened or why she was left like that. He didn't ask anything, and maybe that's why she stayed till she didn't sleep in the bed. She curled up on the floor beside the stove like someone afraid the mattress might bite. She flinched when the kettle hissed. She'd stare at the door like she was expecting it to fly open any minute. Most days she said nothing, just drank whatever Will poured into the tin cup and picked at the bread like it might be poisoned. But she was still there. That counted for something. Will wasn't much for conversation either. He just kept moving, fixing fences, feeding stock, bringing her meals like it was routine, and maybe it was. Maybe the quiet between them was its own kind of language. A week passed. Then one morning while he was chopping wood, she stepped outside, hair pulled back with a strip of cloth, shoulders straight but stiff like she had to remind herself how to stand tall. She didn't say a word, just watched him swing the axe. Then she reached for a log. He didn't stop her. They chopped wood in silence, 2 people who'd run out of things to say long before they met. Later that night she whispered one sentence, "You didn't touch me." Will looked at her but didn't speak. She nodded just once like that told her more than anything else could. And for the first time she finished her food, all of it. She even smiled. It wasn't wide. It wasn't easy, but it was real. Now, here's the thing. If that was the end of it, you'd think maybe this was a story about healing, about good men and second chances, but healing don't come easy, especially not when the past comes riding back into town. The quiet didn't last long. It never does out here. It started with hoof prints, deep ones fresh in the dirt near the south fence line. Will saw them early one morning, just as the sun cracked open the horizon. They weren't his, they weren't from town either. He didn't say anything to her, just checked his rifle and rode the border twice that day. That night she sat a little closer to the fire, said she couldn't sleep, said something felt wrong. Then came the name, burned into the inside of her wrist like a brand, a sloppy tattoo, just 3 letters, Zacchaeus. Will had seen it before. Years back on a drunk outside Bisbee who bragged too loud about things no man should be proud of. Back then Will just turned away, thought if he didn't look he wouldn't get pulled into someone else's mess, but now that name was burned into her skin and that made it his mess too. He rode into Tombstone the next morning not to talk, to listen. 3 girls missing in the last 4 months to 2 from Texas Dowies, 1 from Santa Fe till under 25, all gone without a sound, and no one had done a damn thing. Sheriff said there were no witnesses, no evidence, no point stirring up panic. Will just nodded, thanked him, rode out like a man with nothing on his mind, but something had cracked inside him, 'cause this time it wasn't just about justice, it was about her. That night, under the flicker of the oil lamp, she asked him why he went to town. He didn't look up, just kept cleaning the barrel of his rifle and said real soft, "Sometimes bad men need to know someone's still watching." That's when her hand touched his just for a second, and that's when he knew. This wasn't just a second chance for her. It was his, too. And if you followed the story this far, maybe you know a thing or two about how the world works. Maybe you've seen how often justice don't come with a badge. If you have, stick around. There's more to this story, and if it's your kind of story, well, don't be a stranger. Hit that subscribe button. We've got more fires to light together. Will didn't ride in like some cowboy from a dime novel. He moved quiet, calculated through dry creek beds and narrow canyons where only locals and coyotes passed. He found the camp just after sundown. A shack leaned against the cliff, smoke curling from the chimney. Laughter inside, rough voices, the kind that made your skin crawl. He tied his horse to a low branch and crept up the back trail. Took his time, waited till the bottle clinked for the 3rd time. That's when the noise dipped. That's when men were slow. He kicked the door open. The first one stood up fast, too fast, got the butt of Will's rifle square in the chest. Second one went for his belt. Will shot a warning round straight through the lantern, shattering glass and drowning the room in smoke and sparks. Third one dropped his knife before it even left the table. No one spoke. Will walked over, grabbed the girl huddled in the corner. She wouldn't meet his eyes, didn't need to. He covered her with his coat and nodded once on the way out. He left them with a sentence they wouldn't forget. She's not yours, she never was, and if I hear you touch another girl again, you won't get a second warning. He took the girl to Tombstone. The sheriff looked like he wanted to argue, but Will dropped the broken blade and the girl's blood-stained dress on the desk. That was enough. This time the law finally worked. Back home, she stood waiting by the gate. Didn't cry, didn't ask what happened. She just looked at him like maybe, just maybe, not all men were bad, and Will, for the first time in a long damn while, didn't feel empty. He felt like he'd stood for something. Now, let me tell you this. Justice don't always come easy, but when it comes, it sticks. And if stories like this feel real to you, it might be because deep down you've lived a few chapters yourself. It wasn't a love story, not the kind you read in cheap paperbacks or hear whispered under porch light, but it was something. She stayed, not because she had to, because she wanted to. Days turned quieter, but softer. She started tending the garden out back, planting herbs like her grandmother taught her. She brushed the horses without flinching, even started humming once while sweeping the porch. Will noticed but never said a word. Some things lose their meaning when you talk about them too soon. He still fixed fences, still rose before dawn, but now there was a second cup on the table each morning, a pair of boots left by the door that weren't his. She didn't sleep beside him. She slept in the room across the hall. That was enough. Some nights they shared coffee under the stars, no words, just company, and the kind that feels louder than talking. One evening, as the sun bled out behind the hills, she asked him something simple. "Why did you come back for me?" He thought for a while, then said, "Because someone had to." She nodded. That was all. You see, life doesn't always give us what we deserve, but sometimes it gives us someone who sees we deserve better all along, and that can change everything. Will never asked her to stay, and she never promised she would. But each morning she opened the door, and each night she came home. Love, it turns out, doesn't always come with fire. Sometimes it comes quietly, like rain on old wood, like forgiveness, like starting over. Now, let me ask you something. What would you do if someone showed up at your door needing more than just a place to sleep? Would you close your eyes and pretend you didn't see? Or would you open that door and maybe save a piece of yourself in the process? If this story made you feel something, if it reminded you that redemption still matters in this messy world, go ahead and tap that like button. And if you believe in stories that still have heart and grit and truth, hit that subscribe. We've got more of them coming. Some already happened, some are still waiting to be told, and maybe, just maybe, one of them might be yours.